right there, folks. This is Dan with CLV Boost, and in this brief CLV Boost tutorial, we're going to talk about repurposing the same email message for different segments of your email list for a higher return on investment. I'm going to explain this concept very, very quickly, and by the end of this video, you're going to have 4 different ways to be able to tailor the exact same email to different groups within your list and garner a higher return, whether that be e-commerce purchases, appointments booked, clicks, opens, etc., than you would if you just blasted it to everyone. And I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of just how simple this can be if segmentation is applied the right way. So oftentimes when someone breaks up their email list, there are essentially 2 different benefits to doing so. If we want to really simplify things, and we can tree these 2 down into as many other myriad options as we'd like, but the basic idea is as follows. First and foremost, when you have your email list broken up into different segments, you can present different segments with specific material only for them, and you can exclude other segments from material that doesn't belong to them or shouldn't be shown to them. So as an example, we've worked with a number of folks in the fitness and health space, and they'll often want to segment their list by male and female because they might have a fitness program or some kind of fitness product, whether it be a nutritional product, whether it be some kind of a workout equipment or video course or bit of advice or new blog post or whatever the case may be, that's explicitly for women. And if they sent it to their entire list and it's split 50-50 in terms of gender, they're potentially weakening their relationship with half of their list while strengthening their relationship with half of their list. And that's just no good at all. So the benefit of segmentation there is that you can keep messages out of the inbox of people who they don't really necessarily belong in front of in the first place. And you can only send them to the people who are relevant. The other benefit of segmentation that is often overlooked is the fact that you can take the same email message and send it to your varied segments, and you can garner a higher response. You can garner more opens, more clicks, more purchases, more appointments than you could if you blasted it to everybody. Let me demonstrate this quickly with a picture, and then we will go right into some examples and we'll explain how this is done. So essentially, if I have 2 emails that are sent out, one of them is sent to my entire list of 3,000 people, and I get, let's say, a 10% open rate. My other one is sent out to a number of different subgroupings. So let's say I have 3 different groups of people within here. And this subgroup opens at, let's say, 12%. This subgroup opens at 20%. And this subgroup opens at, let's say, 15%. I might get an aggregate open of something like 16% if I use the same message and just break it up to different segments. Now you might wonder, how are you going to use the same message and garner that much of additional engagement, up 50% or more additional engagement, which is, by the way, not completely unheard of. The way that can be done is by tailoring the same message to different segments. And the business case study that we'll use here is actually not one of our clients. We will use CLV Boost as an actual example. So at CLV Boost, we generally break up all of our new prospects and certainly all of our customers into 3 separate buckets. People who are interested in more leads, people who are interested in more e-commerce sales, and people who are interested in more appointments and in-person sales. So we have people that sell services, that's normally in person. We have people that sell products online, that's basically e-commerce, digital, physical products, doesn't matter. And then we have folks who just want more prospects and they just want more leads in general. They're really interested as much in the sales side, they're interested in the traffic and the list building side. Very, very often people come to us for inbound marketing or list building, so more leads. So those are the 3 categories that people will come to us from. Now we might write a single blog post that sometimes will really only appeal to one of those groups. But a good majority of the time, it will really appeal quite well to all 3 groups. So how can we take the same email and make those 3 different segments of people respond to it individually in a higher fashion, so get more opens and more clicks? Well, we can do that by altering and tinkering with our existing email. So I've created these 4 basic criterion, 4 basic elements of an email that we can tinker about in order to take our what we might call a generic email and tweak it in order to get a higher response. So here's how we can pull this off. one of the easiest ways, and probably the de facto should be your first weapon in the arsenal, is by altering the subject line. So let's say I've written a blog post, and this blog post is all about how to, as a random example, how to get people from your blog, so people reading your articles, to actually take the next step forward and purchase your products. Whether it be get on the phone and buy a service, whether it be hop on the internet and slam down their credit card to purchase something on the internet, whatever the case may be, this is how to use content, article and video content, to convince folks to purchase, to really lean people in the direction of making a first purchase with you. Now, that very topic, in and of itself, can very easily relate to people who are interested in more leads, people who are interested in more e-commerce sales, and people who are interested in more sales appointments or selling services, right? That same article can be quite valuable to those three groups of people. So how can we alter the subject line in order to reflect that and in order to garner attention from those three groups at a higher rate than we might normally? So if the subject line was, and the laziest strategy that you have available to you, which basically nobody has an excuse that they have no strategy, because this first strategy is about as lazy as it gets, is called flagging. Flagging is done as follows. If the original subject line went something like, how to turn blog readers into new customers, right? If that's what the subject line was, how to turn blog readers into new customers, then the very basic flagging strategy would be e-commerce marketers, how to turn blog readers into new customers, or service providers, how to turn blog readers into new customers, or how to turn blog readers into sales appointments, how to turn blog readers into e-commerce customers, or how to turn blog readers into new leads. How to use blog readers to become email subscribers, whatever the case may be. So whether I'm appealing to people that want more leads, people that want more e-commerce sales, people that want more sales appointments, all I'm doing is changing that little latter half of the subject line in order to appeal to what these people are actually interested in. And again, the very, very simple way of doing this is by flagging in the beginning of the subject line. E-commerce marketers, and then whatever the normal subject line was. Generally speaking, you don't want to go more than 9 to 11 words. A lot of people are reading emails on mobile. Generally seen as best practice to kind of hang in the 9 or 10 words range. So don't let yourself get too carried away by flagging, adding additional words. But e-commerce marketers, list builders, service providers, whoever you're appealing to, by simply flagging and sending it to that specific sub-segment, you can often garner a much higher response from that particular group. And embedding the term is the other way that you can pull this off. So in the subject line, which is here, in the subject line, we can simply embed the term. So again, we might say something along the lines of, how e-commerce marketers can yada, yada, yada. We're just going to use the word e-commerce. We're just going to use the word. By simply embedding the term somewhere in the subject line, if that is the term that we know is most relevant to that segment, we're much more likely to garner engagement from that segment by simply just using the word. You'll notice that the word e-commerce somewhere in the subject line will naturally attract and garner a higher open rate from people who came to you because they're interested in selling more via e-commerce. So, how to garner more e-commerce sales from your blog posts, using blog posts to drive e-commerce sales, using blog posts to drive sales appointments, filling your appointment schedule by writing blogs, whatever the case may be, right? We're just going to integrate either the term leads or list building, right? For our first group, the people interested in more leads, we'll integrate e-commerce or online sales for our e-commerce folks, people interested in more e-commerce sales, and we'll use sales appointments or phone appointments for the people who came for sales appointments. So by simply using the term in some way, creatively, in the actual sentence of your subject line, you'll often garner a higher engagement. And again, that's how we can take a message that, if sent generically, might have garnered an overall 10% open, overall maybe 10% click-through. Even if we didn't improve the click-through, we can often get 50% more people to just open the email by simply slicing and dicing the list and appealing to them in a unique way. Lead-in is a very simple concept here, okay? The lead-in is going to be your first paragraph, maybe your first your first two sentences or so. Okay, so I'm shooting from the hip as I speak out loud to you here today, but if I'm going to do a lead-in for a blog post and I want to make this lead-in relevant to e-commerce marketers, here's what I could say. I could say something along the lines of, instead of a generic lead-in that would be just for anybody that wants to, drive sales with their blog, I could say something along the lines of, today I wanted to share with you a blogging strategy that I've used with many of my e-commerce clients to help them generate more online sales simply by writing their blogs and creating YouTube content. Right? If that was my first sentence, that grabs your attention. That's a lead-in, right? That's a lead-in. In journalism, we generally want some sort of an initial early notion that gives people the basic gist of why they should read this, why it's unique, why it's relevant for them. If you create a lead-in in your emails, it can be much more tailored, much more specific, much more engaging when it's tailored to a segment. If you create a lead-in that basically, if I, for example, create a lead-in that's relevant to quote-unquote anybody doing quote-unquote marketing, that's a pretty broad lead-in. That's not all that specific. But if I do a lead-in for e-commerce, again, it's the same content I'm going to send to the folks who are, interested in phone appointments. But if I want to explain its relevance to e-commerce folks, I'll include that in the lead-in. And again, that's the first one or two sentences is tailoring the lead-in.